Welcome to Magical Bedtime Stories, your cozy escape into the world of soothing tales and dreamy adventures. Hello there, sleepy listeners. It's Elina, and tonight we venture into the dark and mystical world of The Witcher. In this special collection, I bring you a series of Witcher-inspired stories, delving into the heart of the continent, capturing the essence of Geralt of Rivia's world. If you enjoy this Witcher collection, please remember to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You can support us on our Patreon, where you get access to our Spotify playlist and early access to all of these stories. But for now, let's get cozy. Step into the enchanting and perilous world of The Witcher. Port, a city of wealth and shadows, spread out beneath the dim autumn sky. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and trade, mingling with the distant sound of waves. Geralt rolled through the gates, the rhythmic clop of Roach's hooves a steady contrast to the bustle around him. Though the streets were wide and clean, and the towers shone in the pale light, there was an unease in the air, the kind only those trained in the craft of hunting could sense. He made his way through the main boulevard, his gaze flicking over the market stalls and nobles passing by in their gilded carriages. Eyes followed him, some curious, others weary. Witchers did not frequent places like this unless something dark lurked beneath the surface. The palace, towering and pristine, loomed at the center of the city. Its white stone walls gleamed. But even from here, Geralt could feel the tension emanating from within. As the guards opened the iron gates without question, he caught the fleeting glances they exchanged, eyes that lingered too long, shoulders a touch too rigid. Inside the palace, the corridors were long and cold, lined with statues of past rulers, their faces stern in judgment. The steward leading Geralt said nothing, his footsteps echoing off the polished stone floors, each sound magnifying the quiet tension. When the heavy doors to the throne room swung open, the weight of the air shifted. Something awaited him here, something heavier than the usual contracts. Queen Sabina sat upon her throne, her silhouette sharp against the backdrop of dim light and high ceilings. Her face was old, expressionless, beneath her eyes, signs of sleepless nights, of a burden weighing her down. "Witcher," she greeted him. "I had wondered how long it would take for my summons to reach you." Geralt said nothing, letting the silence press forward. "I shall not waste your time with formalities," she continued, slowly rising from her throne. "My daughter, Aya, lies in a sleep no healer can break. No magic I possess has lifted it." She walked towards him, her eyes hard as flint, though her steps were careful, measured. "I have been told of curses, of bindings." Geralt's gaze remained steady, waiting for more. He had seen royal courts before. Those polished veneers often hid the rot underneath. This place was no different. "There are rumors," she said. "My son Oleg has grown distant these past few weeks. He was once our greatest warrior, but now something has changed." The pause lingered, her next words left unsaid, but clear enough. Her next words left unsaid, but clear enough. She did not need to ask what Geralt already understood. There is a price for some such things. Geralt said, "You understand that?" Sabina's eyes sharpened. For the first time, there was a crack in her composure. "I am prepared to pay it, whatever it may be. My daughter's life hangs in the balance. This kingdom does too." For a moment, the air between them stilled, heavy with the weight of what lay unspoken. There were darker forces at work here. Geralt could feel it, and they ran deeper than any simple curse. Whatever game was being played, it was larger than just the Queen's children. It always was. The corridors of Court's palace were a labyrinth of twisting stone hallways and narrow passages, and as Geralt made his way through them, the coldness of the air seemed to deepen. Flickering torchlight barely reached the corners, leaving long shadows in their wake. He followed the steward, silent, until they reached a narrow door set into the stone wall, its frame adorned with faint etchings of ruins, long faded by time. "Magician Marone waits for you," the steward said softly, before turning and retreating back into the maze. Geralt pushed open the door, entering a chamber filled with sharp, pungent scents of herbs and candle smoke. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with ancient scrolls, jars of strange ingredients, and intricate charms made from bone and metal. In the center of the room stood Marin, the court magician. An old man with a gaunt face, eyes sunken deep into his skull. He looked up from a low wooden table where various powders and stones were scattered in deliberate patterns. "Witcher," Marin rasped, "I have been expecting you." Geralt nodded but said nothing, his eyes sweeping over the room. Something about this place made his Witcher medallion hum faintly, like the low thrum of a distant storm. Moran's bony fingers traced one of the stones on the table. "The princess is under a binding curse," he said, not looking up. "Of that, I'm certain." Geralt stepped forward. "What kind of curse?" "A tithering, I believe," Marin replied, his eyes meeting Geralt's at last. "Her life force is bound to something else, though what it is, I am not so sure. The source remains hidden from my sight. Wherefore, this spell is powerful, more powerful than I have ever encountered." Geralt's jaw tightened slightly. Finding magic was no small feat, especially if it had eluded the talents of a seasoned magician like Marin. "The Queen fears her son may be involved," Geralt said, his voice low, watching for Marin's reaction. But the magician's gaze did not waver. "Olik, I cannot say what he may or may not be capable of. War has changed him, yes, but if this curse is his doing, it is not by his own hand. He has neither the knowledge or the power to cast such a powerful spell." Geralt regarded him silently, sensing there was more to be said. "There is a legend," Marin continued, his voice dropping lower. "The legend of the Veil Stone." At the mention of the name, the air in the room seemed to grow colder. Geralt had heard fragments of such a tale in passing, ancient and nearly forgotten. The Veilstone was not spoken of openly, even among the learned. A forbidden artifact, Maron. If the Veilstone has been unearthed, then we shall face something far darker than a mere curse. It is a magic that defies nature itself. Geralt's eyes claimed, but he remained silent, processing the implications. A power like that would not be sought lightly, nor would it be easy to find. If the Veilstone had indeed resurfaced, it meant something far more dangerous was at play. "Where is it?" Geralt asked quietly. "No one knows," Maron replied, shaking his head. "It was sealed away centuries ago by those who feared its power, but rumors have surfaced, whispers of it being uncovered in the north, though none can confirm the truth." The Witcher nodded. The path was clearer now. The palace barracks were quieter than Geralt had expected. Rows of armor stood gleaming, untouched, like statues in waiting. The soldiers moved about their duties, but there was a weariness in the air, an unspoken tension. Geralt walked slowly through the halls, his presence commanding a dyed berth, as was usual. He had come to seek out those who had fought beside Prince Olid, those who might know what had driven the war hero into the shadows. He found them gathered in the training yard, where wooden dummies stood riddled with the scars of sword practice. A few men and women in worn leathers and chainmail stood talking quietly. Geralt approached, and the conversation halted as their eyes fell on him. "I'm here about the prince," Geralt said. There was a pause before one of the soldiers, a grizzled man with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. "Witcher, what do you mean?" The soldier exchanged glances with the others before speaking again. He became distant, stopped confiding in us, stopped coming to the barracks. He started speaking other means of protecting the kingdom. Rumor had it he was looking into magic. "Magic?" Geralt repeated. "Aye," the soldier said. Unusual for him. He never had much regard for it before. He always believed steel was the only thing that could keep Cord safe. But lately, well, something changed. There was talk that he was consulting with magicians, studying ancient texts, looking for alternatives. Geralt's mind turned over the possibilities. The prince had not been skilled in magic, yet something had driven him to seek it out. Another soldier with a harsh expression spoke up. He spoke of threats, dangers to the kingdom that no army could fight. Said he was preparing for something bigger, something none of us could see. "And none of you know where he's gone now?" Geralt asked, already anticipating the answer. The older soldier shook his head. "He disappeared after the princess fell ill. Went into hiding, they say. But if you ask me, he was searching for something. Something to save us all." The Witcher's gaze shifted, catching the unease on their faces. They spoke highly of the prince, yet there was something in their voices that hinted at fear. Fear of what he had become. The air in the royal chambers was thick with the scent of incense and herbs, the faint remnants of failed healing rituals clinging to the stone walls. Geralt stepped inside. At the center, in a bed too grand for the pale figure lying upon it, was Princess Aia. Her face was peaceful, almost too still, as if sleep had claimed her completely. But Geralt had seen too many victims of dark magic to be fooled by appearances. Her hands rested over the delicate silks of her gown, but something unnatural clung to her, a faint aura, almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. He stepped closer, his witcher medallion humming faintly against his chest. The air near her was colder, and as he examined her more closely, he noticed the subtle signs, faint veins of energy, barely visible under her skin, winding their way up her arms and neck. It was unmistakable, magical tethering. A curse had bound her life force, tying it to something else, somewhere else. Geralt's eyes narrowed as he reached for the pendant around her neck, his fingers brushing against the delicate chain. The pulse of magic was stronger here, concentrated, as if the object itself was the anchor for whatever power held her. The Veilstone, he thought, was a theory, but each step of his investigation only pointed him closer to this forbidden artifact. The binding curse, the strange disappearance of Prince Oleg, and now the unmistakable signs of life force manipulation. He was deep in thought when the door creaked open behind him. Geralt didn't turn, his senses already telling him who it was. The faint scent of rosewater preceded her arrival. "Witcher, have you found anything?" Geralt straightened, but remained focused on the princess. "It's as I suspected. She's tethered. Her life is bound to something or someone else." Sabina moved to stand beside him, her eyes dark, unreadable. "The Veilstone," she murmured, almost to herself. Geralt didn't respond. He had learned enough to know that confirming too much, too soon, was dangerous in matters like these, especially when a kingdom's fate could be at stake. The Queen's fingers clenched slightly at her sides, betraying the tension she tried to hide. "It's been a week now since I last saw my son," Sabina continued. "Now, no one knows where he's gone, not even his closest advisors. He disappeared. The same night, Aia's condition worsened." Geralt's eyes flicked back to the princess. There was still something missing, something that tied it all together. Oleg's involvement was no longer a question of if, but of why. "Do you believe he is responsible?" Geralt asked. Sabina's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't know what to believe, Witcher. My son would not harm his sister, not willingly, but—" She faltered, her gaze dropping to Aia's lifeless form. "The man I once knew is not the man he has become." A heavy silence filled the room. Geralt turned his gaze to the princess again. The Veilstone. The Veilstone's legend spoke of its ability to bind and control, a power that no mortal should wield. Yet Oleg had sought that power, either out of desperation or something darker. The Queen's voice, quieter now, pulled him from his thoughts. "Please, Witcher." Geralt gave a single nod, already turning towards the door. There was more to be uncovered, and the clock was ticking. Whatever Oleg had become entangled in, it was far beyond a simple curse. It was a magic that could unravel everything, As he stepped into the dim corridor, Geralt couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse was waiting for him beyond the walls of Cthord. The halls of the palace were nearly deserted. The occasional flicker of a torch casting shadows stretched like dark tendrils along the walls. Geralt's footsteps echoed as he approached Marien's quarters, a growing suspicion driving him back to the court magician. Something about the man lingered in Geralt's mind. The door to Maron's chamber was slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack, unnatural, faintly pulsing like a heartbeat. Geralt pushed the door open silently, and there stood Maron, hunched over a table, muttering to himself. Symbols were scrolled hastily across the floor, and a faint glow illuminated the edges of the room. In his hands, Maron held a small crystal bowl that flickered the floor. In his hands, Maron held a small crystal bowl down the right side of the pool. Near it, in the right angle, Geralt's medallion thrummed against his chest. Magic, old, and dangerous. "Maron!" Geralt said, his voice cutting through the low whispering. The magician flinched, nearly dropping the crystal as he spun around, eyes wide. His face paled as Geralt stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. "Witcher!" Marin's hands trembled as he set the crystal down on the table. "I told you everything earlier." No, you didn't." The room seemed to shrink as Geralt stepped closer. "Where is Oleg?" "I'm not sure. Gone into hiding, I think. After the princess fell ill, he vanished. No one has seen him since." Geralt's expression didn't change, his gaze steady and unblinking. "Why?" "I'm not sure why, perhaps he was trying to protect the kingdom." Geralt stepped closer, his presence looming over Marin. The Veilstone. At the mention of the name, Marin winced. Yes, it was sealed away centuries ago, but there are whispers it has been uncovered. By who? By the Veilguard? Geralt's jaw tightened, frightened. He had heard that name before, in passing, never in detail, always in hushed tones, as though saying it aloud would summon something dark. The Veilguard, a secret organization, their roots deep in manipulating the fates of kingdoms through magic and influence. "It's rumored they've been working in the shadows," Maron continued. "They manipulate rulers, push them towards power, always with a hidden purpose." Geralt's gaze flickered over the room. "Where is the Veilstone?" The room fell into silence. Geralt turned and left, the cold air of the palace halls hitting him like a chill. The path ahead was clear, but far from simple. The Veilguard's shadow hung over everything, and the Veilstone's power was only just beginning to stir. The wind howled through the crumbling ruins as Geralt moved cautiously towards the entrance of the hidden sanctum of the Veilstone. The sun had long dipped below the horizon, leaving only the faint glow of moonlight to guide his way. The ruins were ancient, their stones weathered by centuries of neglect, and now they stood as little more than a forgotten monument to powers that should have remained buried. As he approached, Geralt caught movement in the shadows. A lone figure stood near the entrance to the sanctum, shrouded in darkness, but unmistakable in his stance. It was... The prince's face was worn, haggard, his once proud posture diminished. His armor was battered, and the sword at his side seemed more like a burden than a weapon. Geralt's eyes narrowed, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his own blade. "I knew they would send for you," Oleg said, stepping out from the shadows, his eyes meeting Geralt's. "I came for answers," Geralt replied. "I know you sought the Veilstone, and I know what it's done to your sister." Oleg's face twisted with regret. "I wanted to protect Cord from the threats that linger beyond our borders. The Veilguard promised me the power to do that." Geralt took a step closer, his gaze unrelenting. "And what did they take from you in return?" Oleg lowered his head, failure evident in his every movement. He swallowed hard, struggling to continue. "Her life force is bound to the Veilstone. It's feeding on her, using her to fuel its power." Geralt's eyes darkened. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed brought a cold finality to the situation. "You let them use her?" Oleg's hands trembled as he clenched his fists. "I didn't know," he shouted. "I thought I could control it. The Veilguard, they made me believe the Veilstone was the only way to ensure peace, to protect the kingdom. But it was a lie. They manipulated me from the start." Geralt remained silent, his gaze unwavering. Oleg's words carried the weight of his guilt, but there was more beneath the surface, more that needed to be uncovered. "The Queen knew," Geralt muttered. "She's been a part of this all along." Oleg nodded, shame clouding his expression. "She didn't know they would go this far. She never expected they'd use her own children to tighten their grip on the kingdom." Geralt weighed the implications in his mind. This wasn't just about magic. It was about power, control, and betrayal at the highest levels of Cord's throne. Oleg stepped closer, his voice pleading. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I have been searching how to reverse the spell these past few weeks. I have journeyed far through the lands. I can't let it end like this. Aia, she's trapped inside the stone. Her soul is bound to it, and as long as it exists, she'll never awake. The only way to free her is to destroy it, with the spell I have learned." Geralt raised an eyebrow. "And what about you?" Oleg's face twisted with bitter resolve. "The stone has linked itself to me as well, in some strange way. If we destroy it, there's a chance I might not survive, or Aya. But it's the only way to stop the Veilguard, to end this once and for all." Geralt's eyes flickered to the entrance of the sanctum, the cold wind howling through the ruins. "If I help you, Cord may fall. The Queen's alliance with the Veilguard will be exposed, and the kingdom could collapse into chaos." Oleg's jaw tightened. Better chaos than living under their control. If the Veilguard isn't stopped, they'll drain more lives, take more souls. Aia isn't the first, and she won't be the last. If you side with the Veilguard, Aia stays in that coma. They'll keep their grip on the throne, and the kingdom will never truly be free. Geralt stood silent. Help Oleg destroy the Veilstone? Free Aia? and risk political collapse? Or let the Veilguard maintain control, keep Aia imprisoned in her coma, and save Cord from potential chaos? He looked at Oleg, the prince's face lined with regret. There was a finality in his gaze, a man who knew that redemption came at the highest price. "I'll help you," Geralt said at last. "But if you're lying to me, if this is just another game..." Oleg nodded. "No, I know." And so, together, they stepped towards the entrance of the sanctum, the ancient stones groaning under the weight of centuries. The wind died down, and the shadows of the Veilguard's plans hung thick over the path ahead. The Veilstone waited below, and with it, the fate of Cord. The sanctum loomed ahead, a dark, foreboding space, carved deep beneath the ancient ruins. Geralt and Oleg moved in silence. The air grew colder the deeper they descended, the oppressive weight of magic pressing down upon them. At the heart of the chamber, the Veilstone pulsed with a malevolent glow surrounding it. The Veilguard's elite stood in silent vigil, their cloaks hiding their faces, hands raised as they channeled the stone's power. Geralt's hand tightened around his sword. Without hesitation, he launched himself forward, steel flashing as he cut down the first of the Veilguard. Spells flew through the air, but Geralt was faster, weaving through their attacks with the deadly precision of a witcher. Oleg, his face set with determination, knelt before the Veilstone and began the ritual to sever his and Aia's connection. His voice wavered as the magic resisted, but he pressed on, his hands trembling as the energy of the stone pulsed through him. One of the Veilguard stepped forward. "You think you can stop this, Prince? The stone's power is greater than you." Oleg gritted his teeth, his body shaking as the strain of the ritual grew. "I won't let it control us any longer." Geralt fought through the remaining Veilguard, slashing through their ranks with lethal efficiency. But the Veilstone's power was growing unstable, cracks forming along its surface as Oleg's ritual neared completion. The Veilguard's leader laughed. "The stone will consume you, Prince. It will not be destroyed. But," Oleg continued, his voice rising above the chaos, the magic of the Veilstone surged, pulling at him, tendrils wrapping around his body, drawing his life force into it. His body convulsed, the strain evident in every muscle, but still he did not falter. Geralt cut down the last of the Veilguard's defenders, but the real battle was within Oleg. The prince's face twisted in pain as the Veilstone began to tear at his soul. "Oleg," Geralt called out, "it's going to kill you." Oleg gazed. "Mat Geralt, I know, I've always known, but this is the only way to save her." With a final, desperate cry, Oleg poured the last of his strength into the ritual. The Veilstone screamed, its dark, dark light flickering violently as the crack spread across its surface. Geralt watched as Oleg's body slumped, his life force straining into the stone. Then, with a deafening crack, the Veilstone shattered. A burst of light filled the chamber. The Veilstone's power evaporated into nothing. The oppressive magic had filled the air, dissipated, leaving behind only silence. Oleg lay still as Geralt approached, and he managed the final, ragged breath. "Take care of her. Make sure they know the truth." Geralt nodded, watching as Oleg's eyes closed, his body going still. The Veilguard's plans had been undone, their power broken, along with the Veilstone, but the cost had been high. Oleg was gone now. Geralt was left to deal with the aftermath. The throne room was heavy with the weight of loss. Queen Sabina sat rigid, her face pale, as Ayaya, newly awakened, stood before her. The princess's eyes were filled with grief, but also Oleg's. The truth of Oleg's sacrifice had shattered the illusions that held the royal family together. Ayaya's voice trembled. "I know what you did, Mother. Your dealings with the Veilguard may have secured your reign, but they destroyed us." Geralt remained silent. The Veilguard isn't just after the kingdom. Olix said quietly, "What else do they want?" Oleg looked up, his eyes filled with despair. Queen Sabina said nothing. She gazed out the window, distant. She had not foreseen this, the full cost of her decisions. The throne, once solid, now wavered under the shadow of corruption. Days later, Geralt stood before the court. The whispers filled the hall as he spoke, ensuring that the truth of the prince's intentions was known, that Oleg had not acted out of ambition, but out of a desperate desire to save the kingdom. The nobles listened. While many mourned the loss of the prince, others questioned the queen's right to rule. The Veilguard's influence had been broken, but the political future of Querd was far from certain. Doubt lingered, casting a long shadow over the throne. With his task complete and coins collected, Geralt left the city of Querd behind. The chill of autumn followed him as he rode away, his thoughts heavy with the choices he had made. Magic and power had woven a tangled web, and while the Veilguard had been weakened, their influence was not entirely extinguished. Geralt knew their reach extended far beyond Cawdor, that this battle was far from over. In the far reaches of Phelan, where the fabled swamps give way to gnarled forests, lies the village of Vulcan. It is a place few have heard of, and fewer still have seen, for it clings to the very edge of the Whispering Woods, a forest so dense and foreboding that even hardened soldiers speak of it in hushed tones. The woods loom over Vulcan like a slumbering giant, their twisted branches reaching towards the sky as if to claw at the very heavens. By day, the forest is silent save for the rustling of leaves and the occasional cry of a beast. But as twilight falls, they say the trees begin to whisper, sharing dark tidings that mortal ears were never meant to hear. It was on a chill autumn evening that Geralt of Rivia, the famed White Wolf, rode into Vulcan. His arrival was marked by the nervous glances of villagers who peered out from behind shuttered windows. Geralt's cat-like eyes, gleaming with an unnatural amber hue, took in every detail of the settlement. What struck him most was not the ramshackle houses or the muddy streets, but the sheer number of protective charms adorning every doorway and window. Crude effigies of straw and bone swayed in the breeze, while strings of garlic and iron horseshoes hung from eaves. The air was thick with a smell of herbs burned to ward off evil, a scent that made Geralt's sensitive nose twitch. As Roach, his loyal mare, plodded down the main street, Geralt's hand instinctively rested on the hilt of his silver sword. Something was amiss in Vulcan, that much was clear, but the true nature of the threat remained to be seen. Geralt had not come to this forsaken hamlet by chance. A fortnight past, a missive had reached him in Novigrad, bearing the seal of Alderman York of Vulcan. as it always was. But it was a desperation in the old man's words that had truly caught Geralt's attention. As it always was. But it was the desperation in the old man's words that had truly caught Geralt's attention. Now, as the Witcher surveyed the frightened faces of Vulcan's inhabitants, he knew that no amount of coin would truly compensate for the task that lay ahead. Whatever dark force stalked these woods, whatever monster or magic was responsible for the disappearances, Geralt would face it, for that was the Witcher's path, a road paved with danger and lined with the bones of those who had fallen along the way. Geralt dismounted Roach before a squat timber building that stood apart from the others. A crudely painted sign identified it as the alderman's house, though the Witcher needed no such indication. The stench of fear emanating from within was palpable, even to those without his heightened senses. He rapped thrice upon the door, each knock echoing in the eerie stillness that had fallen over Vulcan. After a moment's hesitation, the door creaked open, revealing a man whose face was etched with worry lines, far too deep for his years. Alderman York. Geralt? He inquired, his gravelly voice cutting through the silence. You've come, Master Witcher, York breathed, relief evident in his voice. I feared you might not. Geralt's piercing gaze fixed upon the older man. I'm here, now. Tell me everything. York slumped into a chair, gesturing for Geralt to do the same. It began a month ago, he started. Marta, the miller's daughter, vanished one night. We thought perhaps she'd run off with some lad, but then there were others. Geralt finished for him. York nodded, his eyes haunted. 5 in total, all girls, all between 18 and 20 summers, taken in the night as if by ghosts. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just gone. The Witcher's brow furrowed. It's none we can discern, York replied, shaking his head. They were from different parts of the village, different families. Some were betrothed, others not. None we can discern, Dedes and I. None we can discern. The only problem is that Geralt leaned forward, his voice low and intense. And you're certain it's not simple bandits, human traffickers, perhaps? The old man's face paled. No bandit could slip past our night watch undetected, not 5 times. And there's been no ransom demands, no word at all. It's as if the woods themselves have swallowed them whole. A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the occasional pop and hiss of the candles. Finally, Geralt spoke. Your letter mentioned payment. York nodded eagerly. Yes, 200 crowns, Master Witcher. It's all we could scrape together, but if you can bring our girls back, if you can end this nightmare, it's yours. Geralt's expression remained impassive. And if I only find bodies? The alderman flinched as if struck. Then at least we'll have answers. Please, Witcher. We've nowhere else to turn. The White Wolf rose, his decision made. I need to speak with the families of the missing girls, and I want to see where each disappeared from. Relief washed over York's features. Of course. Geralt paused at the threshold, his silhouette framed by the doorway. Don't thank me yet, Alderman. We've yet to see what horrors lurk in your whispering woods. With that, he stepped out into the gathering gloom, ready to begin his hunt for answers. And for whatever monstrous force threatened the people of Vulcan. The Ant Hen Tavern stood at the heart of Vulcan, a ramshackle structure that seemed to lean drunkenly against the building next to it. As Geralt pushed open the door, the usual hush that fell over a room at a witcher's entrance was tinged with a desperate hope. The tavern keeper, a portly man with a face as red as his ale, waved Geralt over. "Master Witcher," he said, his voice low. "A moment of your time, please." Geralt nodded, settling onto a worn stool. The keeper leaned in close, his breath heavy with a scent of cheap spirits. "There's talk, you know. Old wives' tales, mostly. But in times like these..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "What kind of talk?" Geralt pressed. The keeper snorted, though there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Nonsense about some whispering lady in the woods? Load of hogwash, if you ask me." "But visualize what?" The old-timers swear by it. Geralt's eyes narrowed. "Tell me more." "What's, special? Or what, You're safe. So suppose..." He paused, glancing around nervously before continuing. "They claim every 50 years, a girl has to go into the woods, voluntarily, mind you. And you don't believe this?" Geralt asked, watching the man's face carefully. The keeper shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "Like I said, old wives' tales, but it's true. No girl's gone into those woods in living memory. And now, with these disappearances..." He shook his head again. "It's just people looking for answers, but there ain't none, if you ask me." Geralt nodded slowly, processing the information. Even if the keeper didn't fully believe the tale, it was clear the legend held sway over the village, and in Geralt's experience, such stories often held a kernel of truth, no matter how distorted by time and telling. "One more thing," Geralt said, rising from his stool. "Where can I find the home of the latest girl to vanish?" The keeper's brow furrowed. "That'd be Lina, poor lass. Lived with her mother at the edge of town. Small cottage. You can't miss it." With a nod of thanks, Geralt stepped out into the gathering gloom. As he made his way through Vulcan's muddy streets, the weight of the villagers' fears heavy upon his back, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this whispering lady than mere superstition. The cottage he sought stood alone, set apart from its neighbors, as if the very ground beneath it was tainted. A hollow-eyed woman answered his knock, ushering him inside without a word. The interior was sparse, with only a few pieces of furniture adorning the single room. "You hear about Lena?" Geralt nodded. I need to see her room." The woman gestured to a curtained-off alcove. As Geralt pulled back the fabric, his witcher medallion hummed against his chest. Magic lingered here, faint but unmistakable. His keen eyes scanned the small space, coming to rest on something out of place, a single flower petal resting on the pillow. It glowed with an ethereal light, pulsing gently like a living heart. "What can you tell me about the night Lina disappeared?" Geralt asked carefully, examining the petal. The mother's voice quavered as she spoke. She's been... different these past weeks. Distant. Always staring in the woods, as if they were calling to her. I thought it was just a girl's fancy. But now... Geralt turned, his expression grave. "Did she ever mention a whispering lady?" The woman's eyes widened and she said, "How did you..." Yes, she did. She said she heard singing in her dreams. Beautiful voice. Promising. Promising? What? Geralt pressed. "A better world," the mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. "A world without pain, or fear, or death." Oh God, what has become of my little girl? Geralt's jaw clenched. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was one of ancient magic and terrible sacrifice. Whatever force dwelt in the whispering woods, it was clear that Vulcan's troubles had only just begun. Geralt stepped out of Lina's cottage, the glowing petal carefully wrapped in a scrap of cloth. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and bruise, as darkness crept over Vulcan. The whispers from the forest seemed to grow louder, more insistent. The Witcher's keen nose caught the scent of herbs and incense on the wind. Following the trail, he found himself before a small hut on the outskirts of the village. Dried plants hung from the eaves, and the air shimmered with an otherworldly haze that made Geralt's medallion hum. A wise old crone emerged from the shadows, her milky eyes fixed on Geralt with unnerving accuracy. "I've been expecting you, White Wolf," she cackled. "I am Mara." Geralt raised an eyebrow. "You're the village herbalist?" Mara cackled, the sound of dry leaves scraping stone. "Herbalist? Wise woman? Call me what you will. I know why you're here." She extended a gnarled hand. "Show me." Hesitating only a moment, Geralt placed the wrapped petal in her palm. As soon as the cloth fell away, Mara gasped, her unseeing eyes whitening. "Moonshade," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "I haven't seen this bloom in gods. It's been an age. What can you tell me about it?" Geralt's brow furrowed. "And the whispering woods?" "Aye." The old woman nodded gravely. "The woods." "The missing girls?" Geralt muttered. "More than that," Mara said. "The Moonshade is tied to the Fae folk in our stories. Beautiful and terrible creatures, neither of this world nor fully separate from it. They entice mortals with promises of eternal youth, of a paradise beyond our realm, but their gifts always come with a price. More than that, there is always the compulsion to reproach others. More than that, they're always coming with a price." Geralt's jaw clenched. "And you believe they are responsible for the disappearances?" Mara shrugged, handing the petal back to Geralt. I believe many things, Witcher, but I know this. Those woods are not to be trifled with. They've stood longer than Vulcan, longer than the oldest empire. They have their own rules, their own appetites. She fixed Geralt with her sightless stare, her voice taking on an eerie resonance. Be wary, White Wolf. The path you walk is treacherous. The whispering woods do not give up their secrets easily, and those who delve too deep may find themselves lost forever in a dream for which there is no waking. As if to punctuate her warning, a cold wind gusted through the village, carrying with it the faint sound of ethereal singing. Geralt turned towards the forest, his hand instinctively moving to the hilt of his sword. Whatever dwelt in those woods, be it monster, magic, or something in between, Geralt knew he would have to face it soon, and as the Witcher gazed into the impenetrable darkness of the whispering woods, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was gazing back. As dawn broke, Geralt stood at the edge of the whispering woods, his senses alert for any sign of danger. The forest loomed before him, a wall of ancient trees and twisting shadows. With a deep breath, he stepped into the gloom. The world around him transformed in an instant. The air grew thick and heavy, laden with the scent of decay and something sweeter, more alluring. Geralt's Witcher medallion thrummed against his chest, a constant reminder of the magic that saturated this place. His cat-like eyes scanned the forest floor, searching for any trace of the moonshade petals. There, a faint glimmer caught his eye. A single luminescent petal lay nestled among the dead leaves. An elegant and pure, bright, low. He rose, eyes narrowed, and spotted another petal a few yards ahead. The trail wound deeper into the woods, each step taking Geralt further from the world he knew. The trees grew larger, their bark twisted into faces that seemed to watch his every move. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time seemed to lose all meaning in this place. The trail of petals led him to a hidden path, marked by ancient ruins that glowed with an inner fire. Geralt traced the symbols with a gloved hand, recognizing elements of elder speech mixed with something far older. The path stretched before him, straight and true amidst the chaos of the forest, and with no other choice, Geralt followed it, his hand ever straying far from the hilt of his silver sword. Suddenly, the trees parted, revealing a clearing that took Geralt's breath away. Here, it was as if the seasons themselves had no power. Flowers bloomed alongside autumn leaves, while patches of snow lay undisturbed next to lush summer grass. At the center stood an ancient oak, its branches reaching towards a sky that seemed both day and night all at once. At the center stood an ancient oak, its 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 ancient oak. She was beautiful beyond mortal comprehension, her form shifting like smoke in the wind. One moment she appeared as a young maiden with flowers in her hair. The next, an ageless queen crowned with starlight. Her eyes, when they fixed upon Geralt, held the wisdom and wildness of millennia. "Welcome, Geralt of Rivia," she spoke, her voice like music and breaking glass. Welcome, hep, 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 hep. Welcome, hep. Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. You know why I'm here. The lady nodded, a smile playing across her ethereal features. The girls? Yes, I know. But do you understand, Witcher? Do you comprehend the delicate balance you threaten to upset? Explain it to me, Geralt growled, his patience wearing thin. The lady's form solidified, taking on the appearance of a regal elven queen. Long ago, when the conjunction of spheres brought chaos to this world, a pact was forged between my kind and the people of Vulcan. We would protect them from the horrors that now roam their lands, shield them from plague and war. In exchange, every 50 years, a young maiden would join us in our realm. Geralt's eyes narrowed. Join you? The villagers believe you devour them. A tinkling laugh, like wind chimes in a storm. Mortals and their limited understanding. We do not destroy, Witcher. We transform. Those girls become one of us, guardians of the veil between worlds. And the recent disappearances? Geralt pressed. The lady's expression darkened. The cycle was broken. No maiden came willingly, so the balance shifted. And now the old hungers awaken. The woods call out, and those with ears to hear cannot resist. Geralt processed this information, his mind racing. So the girls aren't dead. Not in the way you understand death, no, the lady replied. But they can no longer return to their mortal lives. They are part of something greater now. The Witcher's jaw clenched. He had come seeking a monster to slay, but instead found something far more complex. The lady watched him, her ageless eyes filled with both sympathy and challenge. What now, Geralt of Rivia? She asked. Will you uphold this ancient pact? Or will you doom Vulcan to the horrors that lurk beyond their understanding? The weight of the decision pressed down on Geralt like a physical force as he stood there, caught between two worlds. He knew that whatever choice he made would have far-reaching consequences for both Vulcan and the delicate balance of power in this enchanted realm. The whispering lady's form shimmered, her expression growing grave. There is more you must know, Witcher, she said. This pact protects Vulcan from more than just the everyday monsters that roam this land. Geralt's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The lady waved her hand, and the air before them shimmered. An image formed, a vast chamber deep beneath the earth. Within it, Geralt saw a massive sarcophagus, its surface etched with symbols of warning and containment. Long before the first humans set foot in these lands, the lady explained, a higher vampire of immense power ruled this region. It was a creature of such malevolence, such hunger, that even my kind feared its wrath. The image shifted, showing scenes of devastation, entire villages reduced to ash, forests withered and dead, the land itself seeming to writhe under the vampire's influence. We managed to subdue it, to lock it away in a death-like slumber, the lady continued, but such a being cannot be truly killed. The pact, the power of the transformed maidens, it all feeds into the wards that keep the vampire contained. Geralt's jaw clenched. And now that cycle has been broken? The lady nodded. The vampire stirs. Its influence seeps out, calling to the young women of Vulcan. The recent disappearances, they are not our doing, but the result of the vampire's growing power. The Witcher paced, his mind racing. So, if this pact isn't renewed, the vampire will awaken fully? The lady finished for him, and this land, perhaps all of the northern realms, will face a darkness not seen since the conjunction of the sphere. Geralt stopped, fixing the whispering lady with a piercing gaze. What would you have me do? Force innocent girls to sacrifice their lives, their humanity, to maintain this pact? The lady's form flickered, a hint of sorrow crossing her ethereal features. Is it truly a sacrifice, Witcher? To live for centuries? To wield power beyond mortal comprehension? To be part of something greater than oneself?